Hey, good afternoon, everybody. My whole YouTube channel is about the expansion of consciousness or Ascension science. And if you're new to my channel, welcome. My name is Meredith Lego. And in today's video, I'm going to be talking about a subject called Amrita oil, which also is sort of been disclosed, or I guess you could say brought up as a topic in the new blockbuster movie called Avatar 2, The Way of Water. So I'm going to be talking about the connection between Avatar and Amrita oil in this particular video. And as I'm doing, I'm going to be referring to some notes that I prepared in advance. So excuse me if I'm spending some time reading here. But as I mentioned, I'm going to be talking about Amrita oil. Now, this is really a type of hormone that is activated as basically frequencies start to increase inside of our body as we mature with age, if you will. So it's frequency currents that go up the spine and the physical body. If you're sort of in the community of understanding ascension or awakening, if you will, this is also referred to as the Kundalini energy that rises normally up the spinal column as you're starting to undergo consciousness changes, if you will. So basically each being, so whether they're human or any other being out there on the planet, or I guess you could say in the universe, basically has a genetic code to hold higher and higher forms of consciousness that start to take root inside of the being over time. So that happens as the consciousness starts to integrate more into the actual physical body, and it starts to sort of get unlocked within the genetic code or the DNA. But until that time, the consciousness and the higher consciousness potential is essentially stored at the base of the spine. And at the right time, as the being starts to take interests, or there could be sort of a mass trigger event, like some sort of a traumatic event that happens to the physical body that causes that high frequency set of currents of energy to sort of move up the spine. So that's essentially what happens. So there's a right time that sort of quote unquote activation happens for everybody. So again, this is the Amrita oil that is located in the brain that essentially gets activated kind of in later stages of awakening or ascension. So the video that I'm going to be going through is actually broken into 4 parts. One is why I chose to make this video, how it relates to the movie Avatar 2, The Way of Water, which was just released. So I'm going to go into a little bit of that. Then I'm going to talk about Amrita oil and exactly what it is and how it gets activated. And then what I took away as being 4 key lessons to learn by connecting the movie itself with the learning about Amrita oil. So first of all, let me talk about why I'm making this movie. So if you've been watching me for a while, I started this YouTube channel just about a year ago, and it really does, in a lot of my content, I'm bringing forward information that I've been able to channel from other beings, some cases ascended masters and or collective consciousness beings. So basically, I've been able to tap in or tune into beings who have sort of ascended the incarnational loop, if you will, and they're sort of teaching us on how we expand our consciousness for this as well. But I also learned, frankly, from other human beings on this earth as well. So I view everybody as being my teachers. And in fact, this last summer, kind of midsummer, I stumbled upon a website that was called Energizing Synthesis, and I would highly encourage you to go there if you're actively involved in trying to expand your consciousness. So the website is called energeticsynthesis.com, and it's owned by Lisa Renee. And I found the content extremely resonating for a couple of reasons. Like, I just felt it all over my body, but it also matched a lot of the content that I was channeling as well in historic years. And it also matched some of the content that had been channeled by Anna or Ashayana Dean that I had read in the Voyager series. So I found that content also deeply, deeply resonating. And so it just struck a chord that said, this to me at least is presenting truth that I find to be true within my kind of soul, if you will. So each month, Lisa basically releases a newsletter, and starting back in midsummer, I started to read through all the historic newsletters, starting back in the year 2005. And obviously, since I have a day job and I have a family, it's taking me time to kind of get through each one. And about 2 days ago, so it's in the holidays, and I'm taking a holiday break right now from work, but about 2 days ago, I finally reached to the newsletter that was for September 2014, and it was called Quantum of Light. Okay, so Quantum of Light. So again, you can also find this article or monthly newsletter, I guess you could say, and I'll post it in my comment section, but it's on the website Energizing Synthesis. It's copyrighted, so I just do want to make note of that, and it is published, if you will, by Lisa Renee. So I read that article, and then later that night, I went to go see the movie Avatar 2: The Way of Water with my family at the movie theater. But what I found is that the two are connected, and there is absolutely no coincidence that I read that article that morning and then saw the movie that night, because basically the concept of Amrita oil came up in both the movie and the article as a theme. And so what I found in working with my spiritual team and my guides is that when stuff like that happens, what I've come to learn that it's not a coincidence, that those two things were put in my face in my own timeline back to back for a reason. Okay. So I wanted to, I certainly, got an aha out of that moment, and I wanted to pass that on to you because it might help with your own spiritual journey, if you will. So let me talk about the movie first, Avatar 2: The Way of the Water. So there's a bit of disclosure that goes on in this movie, and I think it's definitely going to be very helpful with the awakening process of many humans. And one of the things that I'm going to be talking about as seen in the movie, not the storyline itself, which, I wouldn't want to reveal. So if you haven't seen this movie yet, and you don't want to be, if you want to be surprised by watching the movie, then I would encourage you not to watch my video right now. See the movie, and then at some point in the future, if it resonates with you to come back to this video, then watch it then. But if you haven't seen this movie yet, and if you want to walk into the movie having a better understanding of this one scene that I'm going to be referencing, and so that you'll have a much deeper appreciation for what you're watching as you're watching the scene, that I would encourage you to stick with this video. It's going to be a little bit longer. As I mentioned, I'm not going to reveal the storyline itself, but just reference this one scene. So going back to The Way of the Water, it's obviously, it's the second movie in the Avatar series, which came out in 2019, directed by James Cameron, I think it is. And as you can tell by the name of the movie, it primarily takes place in and around the water. More specifically, it takes place in what are the oceans of an alien planet, or a non-Earth planet called Pandora. And that's basically where the whole movie is kind of produced, if you will. It's in the concept of a non-human planet in the future called Pandora. And it's very Earth-like, but there is a kind of a main species on the planet, very humanoid looking, called the Na'vi. And they almost look feline in nature, and they would be very similar to what we might think is or know of as being the Lyrans. So there's one scene in the movie of a company, I guess you could say, an Earth-based company that is on Pandora, and the entire purpose of this company is to hunt a specific species of ocean life, I guess you could say. They might be hunting other things, but they primarily seem to be hunting a species called the toucans. And they're basically, the toucans are very similar to what we would think of as Earth whales. So basically, it's a metaphor for them hunting or whaling, basically whales. And similar to our whales, the toucans as a species are very peaceful, very beautiful. And it seems that the local indigenous humanoids, the Na'vi, have developed a way to telepathically communicate with the Tulkans. And also, just like humans hunted whales centuries ago for heating oil, basically these Tulkans are being hunted by this company that has basically come onto this planet to harvest oil from their body. And specifically, they're harvesting what's called Amrita oil, which is located in the brain. And in the movie, there's a character who plays basically a marine biologist, and the character's name is Dr. Ian Garvin. And in my opinion, he actually reveals the most important information in the movie. Has nothing to do with the storyline itself, but in my opinion, he's revealing the most important information in the movie. So he mentions that the Tulkans are highly intellectual creatures, or beings, you know what I would consider them, and are probably smarter than humans, as well as being more spiritual and more emotional. Because and he later goes on to reveal that it's because they have a higher kind of number of neurons that are networked together in the brain. So he's basically comparing with another character. He's talking about the differences between the Tulkans and the humans, saying, you know, they are likely smarter and wiser than us, basically in a lot of ways, and it has to do with their brain development. There's another reason that is implied as to why the Tulkans are quote unquote more spiritual or more emotional or more advanced, but it's not directly stated. And it has to do with the fact that the Tulkans seem to have activated their Amrita oil inside their brain. And as we're learning about this, there's a certain scene that's going on in the movie. So in this scene, this company has just basically gone on an exercise of capturing a whale, and is in the process of harvesting this Amrita oil. And they do so by basically going inside of the mouth. You know, think about a very large whale. And they're in the process of harvesting this Amrita oil using a very, very large syringe. So another character in this movie basically explains that this oil is being harvested because it can extend the life for humans back on Earth, and that a single vial of this oil, which, you know, in the movie looked to be about the size of a large water bottle, call it, you know, 40 to 50 ounce bottle, was apparently worth $80 million. So there was quite a large economic value for this particular company to be doing it, aside from the moral value. And when I was watching this, obviously I was blown away because, as you'll find out later, I had literally just read about Amrita oil that morning, but also it really reminded me of the concept of ambrosia. So ambrosia was brought up in a lot of ancient Greek myths as being the food or the drink of the Greek gods, and is often depicted as conferring longevity or immortality to whoever basically partook, if you will, of ambrosia. So drinking of the ambrosia or whatever. Also, interestingly, it also corresponded to another movie which came out recently, I think in 2015, called Jupiter Ascending. And in that movie, there was also a lot of disclosure that went on. But in this movie, humans and other species are basically harvested for their genetic essence to extend life for those who are basically taking or drinking or bathing in the essence, if you will. So that theme of extending life because of oils that are harvested from other beings definitely came up in Avatar. So let me go into Amrita oil itself. So if you're on an awakening journey, you might be, otherwise you may not be watching, you know, my channel, but you might have learned about the chakra system. So basically, you know, I had kind of heard about it growing up, but didn't pay much attention. And as I was starting to learn about it, I actually wanted to see it in action, because I'm sort of like, I gotta see it to kind of believe it. I'm more of a scientific view. And the way that I actually saw it is that there are chakra centers that are located at different points across the body. And they are essentially portals, if you will, or connection points between the field of energy that we reside in, because we essentially reside within a quantum field. And it's a kind of connection point between that field and our physical bodies. And the point that the chakra system kind of connects into our body is into our endocrine system, if you will. And I first witnessed it by lying down and basically having a string with something sort of heavier at the bottom of it. It could be like a crystal or just like a string with like a ball attached. If you simply hold that over the points where the chakra systems or the chakra points are on the body, they will start to naturally turn by themselves, even if you are trying your darnest to keep that string perfectly still. What it's doing is it's picking up the natural flow that's coming in and out of your physical body, again, connected through the endocrine system. So that's how I was able to show my whole family, certainly, that it wasn't woo-woo, that in fact it really did exist, because there were currents that were flowing from their body and they could not control it no matter how much they tried. And different currents spin in different directions, basically. And so the endocrine system, obviously includes different glands like the pineal gland, the pituitary gland, the thalamus, and the adrenals and various organs. And it uses basically the chakra, the chakra system, and the adrenal, basically it uses hormones to control and coordinate your body's metabolism, energy level, reproduction, growth and development, and then response to injury, stress, and mood. And it's a very important, obviously, system within the body. So, for example, if you are, let's say, in a dark alley and you don't quite feel right, you kind of feel your hairs on your arms standing up and the hair at the back of your neck standing up, and something inside of you saying, I don't feel right here. That is basically your chakras pulling in information from the field, from the environment, giving you sort of a warning system. And it's coming into your endocrine system that is then producing the hormones and the chemicals that is then feeding information to your brain and to your body on how to react in that moment. And so you see that obviously that humans have it, animals have it. That's what enables the fight or flight response. But it's those chakra points, that sort of doorway or gateway or portal between that connects the field into your physical body, into your endocrine system, to create the hormones and the signals for your body to start doing stuff, basically. And as I mentioned before, if you're on an awakening journey, you might have heard about the chakras, but you might also have learned about some of those significant glands. The big one would be the pineal gland, because it's connected to the crown chakra. So the pineal gland is important. It basically, its primary function is to produce melatonin, which is a serotonin-derived hormone that modulates sleep patterns in the circadian and the seasonal cycle. So basically, it helps kind of regulate our sleep patterns, if you will. So another really key gland is the pituitary gland, which regulates growth, metabolism, and the reproduction through the hormones that it produces. The production of these hormones is either stimulated or inhibited by chemical messages sent from the hypothalamus to the pituitary. And the posterior lobe produces two hormones, vasopressin and oxytocin. Okay, so that is the primary role of the pituitary gland. And I'm bringing this up because it's going to come up later as I talk a little bit more about Amrita oil. So let me connect all of this back to that article or that newsletter that I talked about reading the morning that I saw the movie Avatar 2, just a couple days ago. So again, this article is called Quantum of Light. Again, it is posted on the website energeticsynthesis.com, and it is authored by Lisa Renee, who's channeled this basically, and it is copyrighted. Okay, so in this article, it refers to Amrita oil, And it was, again, the first time that I had learned about it. It was no coincidence that I had learned about it that morning before watching the movie. But I'm going to read a couple passages from her information that was posted on that, and because it does a much better job of explaining Amrita oil and how it sort of activates during that sort of awakening process. So the center of the brain, which is activated through later stages of spiritual Kundalini awakening, is the anointing of crystal plasma waters, which is located between the pineal and the pituitary and is called the crystal palace. The crystal palace is the alchemical brain wetted chamber, which activates crystal waters or anoints the crown and brain with Amrita oil. The Amrita oil is activated through the sacred marriage between the mother principle of the pituitary gland and the father principle of the pineal gland. And I'm going to pause right there before going on. So if you're new to the channel, basically what this is referencing is the fact that we've got different energetic qualities to our body. We've basically got magnetic energy and electrical energy that flows through our body, basically between our heart and brain. So it's called the electromagnetic field. Others might call it the aura, but that's essentially what it is. It's an electromagnetic field. And so when you activate and balance your magnetic and electrical charge within your body, you're essentially helping to activate, if you will, the Amrita oil between your pituitary and pineal gland. Okay, so I've got some videos that I've done in the past that talk about the stages of ascension of consciousness, and they talk about 3 or 6 or 7 stages that go on, but also I've got some videos that talk about essentially what's happening as you're sort of balancing out your electrical and magnetic charges. And so I will include those in the comments section because they're highly relevant to that one sentence. So when she talks about, when Lisa talks about sort of the activation of the sacred marriage between the mother principle and the father principle, you know, it's not necessarily the genders. She you know, might debate me differently, but the way that I'm reading that is that it's sort of the balancing out of the magnetic and the electrical charges of the body as well. So it is this oil, this Amrita oil, that lights the consciousness lamp inside the brain. It's between the old brain at the back and the new brain in the front of the head, between the left and the right hemispheres, sitting above the 2 wings of the mysterious ventricles. It rests between the 2 large cerebrums at the anterior end of the cerebellum. So here she's just simply pointing out exactly where in the brain it's located. Now what's interesting is that in the movie Avatar 2, as the scene is taking place that talks through Amrita oil, they're holographically showing an image of the brain of the Tulkun that was just killed and that they're harvesting this oil from. And so you can see within this holographic image that this gland, if you will, this oil pod, if you will, or this basically, you know, chamber, if you will, is located exactly in the center of the brain. So she describes it the same way. During spiritual initiation of the crystal palace, hormones, including oxytocin and vasopressin, are released from the pituitary gland into the bloodstream to facilitate the metamorphic birth and spiritualize the blood within crystal waters. The fact that the nerves and blood vessels that feed the eye and middle ear pass through the cavernous sinus on either side of the sphenoid sinus leads us to speculate on the mechanisms behind both celestial music that is heard when the crystal palace is lit up, and changes in the eyes, such as light emerging from them, changes of consciousness seen in the eyes, and faculty of transcendental vision itself. So she's talking about the changes that happen as the Amrita oil are essentially being activated within the brain. When the crystal palace is lit, transcendental vision occurs. The rings around the iris and the eyes may start to lighten up in color, mostly into pale aqua blue rings. Transcendental or multidimensional vision occurs due to increased Kundalini flow, raising dopamine and many other brain neurotransmitters that change the instruction set of brain neural net and its impulses. All kinds of changes happen in the endocrine system, as well as the retinas, optic nerves, optic chiasm, and the occipital lobes, including increased ATP production, acting as a neurotransmitter, histamine, increasing blood flow in the brain, and an increase in nitric oxide metabolism. The end result being one has an increase in visual acuity, inner vision, inner lights, seeing auras, and experiencing vivid dreams and symptoms of expanding consciousness. So, as I mentioned, I just wanted to read it verbatim because I thought it was such a great description of Amrita oil. And essentially she's going into excruciating detail about like how it happens, where it's located, and then when it is activated, essentially what happens to the being in terms of different changes that they start to experience. And I think this is really key because oftentimes as you're going through an awakening experience, you might start to have what are referred to as, what she refers to here as transcendental or multi-dimensional visions. I certainly, experience it. And as it was starting, I hadn't stumbled on this website to give me guidance as to what was going on and what was changing inside of my whole body. Fortunately, I was able to connect with other beings and start to get some answers. But, essentially, this is a good description of what was going on. So, you've basically got some changes that are going on inside the chemistry of your brain. And you might find yourself realizing that I'm having these visions, or I'm seeing auras, or I'm seeing other multidimensional energy around me, but the person standing next to me can't see that. It's not that you're going crazy. It's just that you've activated different aspects within your neurotransmitters and literally within your DNA, and the person next to you just hasn't activated that yet. So that's essentially what's happening. It's just, we've got different elements of the DNA and the hormones and the neurotransmitters that are essentially getting activated. And so there's a couple of key lessons that, I took essentially by being able to have the benefit of learning about Amrita oil and then watching it later that afternoon in this movie. So like I said, the coincidence of those two things happening back to back, it wasn't a coincidence. It, in my experience, again, from my guides, it's usually intentional. So the 4 lessons that I walked away with is that, number 1, all beings, absolutely all beings have Amrita oil. Okay. So they show in the movie that it's just the Tulkans who have that. But I want you to know that you have Amrita oil and the ability to activate Amrita oil yourself. Okay. It exists in all humans. The second key lesson for me is that the activation of the Amrita oil is something that can occur within through ourselves with a lot of dedicated effort on advancing your consciousness. And a lot of that can include meditation. So again, it's, like I've been saying on my site all along, better to do the organic work and essentially to expand your consciousness, because by doing that, you're able to release a lot of blocked energy that is essentially might be keeping that sort of that energy, that the higher frequencies of energy of moving up your spine, that Kundalini energy, it if you haven't experienced that yet, that means you've got blocks inside of your energy, your physical body, your emotional body, your energy body, your mental body. There are blocks that are going on. And a lot of the work is taking time and meditation to understand your triggers and traumas in order to essentially release that trapped energy, those trapped blockages that are going on inside of your body, to allow the higher energy frequencies that might be stored in your spine to start kind of raising up. And by doing that, you begin to essentially activate that Amrita oil. But the journey is going through the experience of thinking about what triggers you and why you were traumatized and working past that. That is the work. And that is a lot of work that a lot of people don't want to do. And sometimes it can take a lot of years, but that is the work. It can, so I think the other thing as part of that lesson is that it occurs really through the neutralization of the electrical and the magnetic properties, which do occur as part of those stages of ascension. So I can't explain that all in one video, because I obviously have over 100 videos that get into how that happens. And if you're new to the channel, I would encourage you to go back. I'll include the links to a few of them that are really key around this. But it's through that process that it occurs. So the third lesson that I walked away with is that, and it's just them remembering that we really are eternal beings. And so when you go through the awakening process and you start to remember other lives that you've had, you realize that you truly are a multidimensional being, and that your ego, your physical body might die, but you don't die. Okay. So, we already are eternal beings. So the idea of essentially, harvesting stuff from others in order to extend your life, why create harm to others when you really are an external being, an eternal being? The key is to remember, or to work on consciously remembering that you are an eternal being, especially during the death process. And I do have a video that's called Conscious Dying, which I encourage you to watch, and how that also connects to exit points. So when we come into incarnation, we set up different exit points for our life. And our higher self does this. Our ego doesn't choose to do this. Our higher self does this. And so it's at least being aware of the fact that you've got exit points. They will come up. And if you can work on consciously dying and, being able to work on remembering during that process, that's going to be a really important, step. So the fourth key lesson is that we don't need to overly rely upon external technology. So, obviously we live in a world that has great advancements in medical science, and I'm not discounting the advancements of that. But I think the key message is that we also have amazing technology within our own four bodies. And when I say our four bodies, it's our physical body, our emotional body, our mental body, and our etheric body. And those four bodies are really helped and generated by what's called an etheric blueprint. Okay. So we are advanced ourselves. We have, and I've talked about these experiences before, we have the ability to travel and bilocate our consciousness, and in some cases our physical bodies. We don't even need transportation, right? Now, we haven't gotten there yet as a species, so we have to rely upon transportation, but we have the ability to do it, okay? So we're advanced. We also have the ability to heal ourselves. So, we can essentially program our consciousness for self-healing, okay? So we don't always need to rely upon external technology. As I mentioned before, we don't need to harvest the essence of other beings in order to, achieve, long life, if you will. So you're already an eternal being. You're gonna live a very long time. The point is trying to remember it, and we don't need to, sort of harvest other beings in order to, achieve that outcome. So that was, I guess you could say, the fourth lesson that I walked away out of this. So anyway, it was a good movie. So if you haven't seen it, I would encourage you to see it. You know, I found it to be entertaining, but also highly disclosing, I guess you could say, of certain topics that hopefully can awaken certain individuals to more of their higher consciousness attributes, I guess you could say. And so I hope that this certainly has added to your understanding. And with that, I hope I hope that you have a great new year. And if you're new to this channel and the content resonated with you, I would encourage you to subscribe and sign up for alerts, because this is the type of information that I post. Thanks a lot, and have a great rest of your day. Bye.